All right, welcome back to the O&G StrikeZone. Bryan, Kelvin, Marcus, and joining us right now is none other. Welcome back to the O&G, good friend of the program, Vaughn Wilson, president of the Eddie Jackson 220 Quarterback Club, and of course of HBCUGameDay.com. And if you are doing what I did recently, I just popped over, Vaughn, to HBCU Game Day. And the top 5 HBCU stories. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't even know what this 5th story is, but hell, it says slack on it. I got a feeling it might involve us. Who knows? Maybe not. But the top 4 stories on HBCUGameDay.com in some form or fashion related to FAMU.
Listen, our team is all over the country. I mean, they're located all over, but everybody was turning to me this week like it's Tallahassee, it's FAMU, it's good, bad, and different. None of it was really good. None of it was good. But it's one of the things you sign up for as a journalist. When you're a journalist, even if it's your institution, you have a responsibility to report to the best of your knowledge the facts. And that's one thing about us at HBCU Game Day. We don't jump out there, and and we're not sensationalized. We're hard. Some of us are hardcore journalists, like myself and Tolly, and everyone else has journalistic training. Even though some act like they don't at times, but we do. And so we stay middle of the road most of the time and try to be a place where people can turn to get facts about things. You know, we verify, we call. And so it's looking at the numbers. September was an absolutely record year for us. Not just the FAMU stuff. It's just a record year for us when you look at what's Michael Vick and Deshaun Jackson and what they've injected in the SWAC. Eddie Robinson. There are a lot of things that contributed to that. So I'm talking, we'll be putting out a graphic as they gather all of the data because it's an absolute record year by far, a record month, by far. And people are interested in what's going on. So it just so happens that in these last 2 weeks, it's been FAMU.
I don't even know which story look, we all, how much time, guys, did we spend trying to figure out which story we were going to lead with? I think we spent about 5 minutes. You know, we don't do a whole lot of pre-gaming here on the O&G, but outside of texting and emails. But I think the longest we've taken is trying to figure out what are we going to lead with, because we got like 4 different stories that we could lead with. So I guess, Vaughn, I will start with, as it's on the site, I will start with number 1 here, which has to do with the fact that the game that was scheduled to be in Mercedes-Benz Stadium will not be in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. What can you tell us that we don't know? Which I feel is a lot, but anyway.
Well, it's a disappointment because I know that fans are now scrambling, trying to get deposits back, canceling car reservations. Airbnbs don't often have givebacks, and people do that a lot now. So if people did Airbnb, they're just out of luck, you know? And so the unfortunate thing there is this happened for a couple of reasons. In Mississippi Valley State, and like I said, I'm not going to just throw Mississippi Valley State under the bus. I think our absence of leadership at FAMU contributed heavily to it, because somebody should have looked kind of like I did about 50 days out and say, wait a minute, nothing's out there. And there are benchmarks that have to be met at certain times, and I just didn't see those. And from calling both ticket offices, I didn't get the information that was satisfactory to me, and I kind of threw up a red flag. what I'm imagining is the promoters bit off a little more than they could chew, because they were also trying to do something in Tampa. But when I say leadership, after 2 missed deadlines, Reggie Theus pulled a plug, and they were trying to get him to stay on. And he said, no, we're going to go back to have the game at Daytona. We're going to tone it down and we'll just have it at Daytona because it's unfair to our fans. So FAMU, without somebody in that position to be able to recognize and assist Valley, who had a new athletic director in place, taking over for interim that started this process, and not having experiences with classics. FAMU knows classics, and we know what should be happening when, and so without Valley having that experience, they were at a disadvantage. Might have been thinking it was normal that things were going along and things weren't happening, probably hoping they eventually would, but it never happened. Things that needed to happen never happened. And so we're here. We're left with Monday, them scrambling, trying to find facilities in Atlanta to have the game, as not to cause people to lose their deposits and airline travels and all those type of things. But it's an unfortunate thing because a lot of Rattlers were looking forward to going to that game, even some who had not purchased their tickets yet. So I don't have much else to say besides that. When we write a story and people put a comment, we get what's called a ping back, and it lets us know that somebody's made a comment. The day after we ran the story about the game not being in Mercedes-Benz, we wake up to all of these ping backs because people are trying to get their refunds, and they're getting a message that made people uncomfortable. The message said, from Ticketmaster said, you'll be refunded. You don't have to do anything. You'll be refunded to the source that you bought your ticket once the event planners return the funds. That's what it says.
So it's not coming back from Ticketmaster per se. Is that what you're saying?
Apparently, it will come from Ticketmaster. Will refund everybody after they get refunded from the event planners. That's what the message says. So I thought it was a hoax. I really did. And you know me, I got to go find some sources. I was looking around and some other people didn't have that on there. Then I went to the Georgia Football Classic website and hit tickets, and the Ticketmaster link showed me that exact thing that people were telling us was there. So that's a concern that's a concern. That's the latest concern on that game. It's unfortunate. The game is Thanksgiving weekend in Edabina, but that forced our coaches. That's the time when you need to be recruiting. Recruiting now is kind of difficult because you want to see the good teams. You want to see who's in the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? Who has the better athletes. So they had to scramble, make plans, and try to at least go see somebody. You got to be at least in the game of recruiting to have any kind of chance to get some of these athletes, and even the junior college athletes. So the coaches went into a scramble to try to get a handle on some recruits for the next season.
Hey, Kelvin, before you go, and I don't know if this is maybe something you were going to ask, but when Vaughn mentioned benchmarks, can you expand on when you mentioned benchmarks that caused the last game, the one that was going to be in Tampa, to fall apart? And what were those? And were there similar benchmarks in this situation in Atlanta that were missed?
From what I hear, they were very similar. But like I said, there was not the person with the eyes on those benchmarks to make the decision like Theus did. Valley, current AD, was new. So she was not familiar. She was trying to get her feet in the ground at Valley. FAMU had a deputy AD that did not have a whole bunch of authority. So you had a situation where there was the absence of that, at least one rock solid leader who was aware of what was going on and could have made a decision earlier.
Vaughn, to that point, when you mentioned, and once again, it's not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but in the case of Bethune-Cookman and Southern, Reggie Theus made the decision as BCU's AD. Was that because it was Southern's home? I mean, sorry, God, goodness gracious, BCU's home game to relocate to Tampa. So in this instance, in theory, the owner should have been on the home team's AD to look at those benchmarks and make that decision.
Absolutely, absolutely. But just as I said, she was new, and by the time she got in her office, some of those benchmarks had been missed already. So with her trying to figure out what was going on, it's kind of unfair to blame her to walk into that and just immediately grasp it. It's a lot to grasp in that contract. And from what I hear, she was uncomfortable with it. The more she heard of, the more she dug into it.
Okay. On the FAMU side, would we be aware of the missed benchmarks, or would that be out of our purview because it was a Valley home game, or any team in that situation? Would the benchmarks be made known to the home team who's relocating? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a kind of sticky situation because it's Valley's home game, so FAMU pretty much has to kind of follow the lead. When someone is the home team, they are in charge. When it becomes a neutral game, you have a little more say, but the onus is on the home team to provide the game site and the facility
and the information, I guess.
And the information, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna add some street committee stuff to this.
Some in.
So one of the differences between the Tampa game and Atlanta game is that the venue, that was a pro stadium too. The venue kind of alerted everybody, both institutions, the promoters, say, hey, the numbers, the math ain't mathing. So typically when you have large events, again, these are pro venues, so they know what's going to be successful and what's not going to be successful. So they sound the alarm. And as Vaughn indicated, people made informed decisions. I think in the case of the Atlanta game, while the information was shared, but I think the decision was, hey, let's see what ticket sales look like. They rode it to the end, because if you have ticket sales money into the coffers, then the venue can get their money out of that. And according to the street committee, the message,
right a lot of times, to be honest, who was right a lot of times.
The message that Vaughn is referencing, I would tell you, as someone who's worked every major venue, including the Buck Stadium, the Miami, all the Miami stadiums. I don't think I ever worked the Benz though. But I worked most pro stadiums in the South. The venues only use their own vendors. So even when they reach an agreement and improve a venue, which they vet, and based on who it is, they can negotiate certain things about it, but they're not going to allow you, because their brand is on the line too. You got to remember, the Mercedes-Benz is the most used stadium in the country. Not only is it home to the Falcons and the soccer, but it's also home to several bowl games, pre-games, preseason games, postseason games, the college championship, concerts. They're constantly having events there.
High school.
So if you can let myself try to go up there and try to negotiate that I'm going to use that venue, I won't get anywhere with it at all. So for to get this farce tells you that people may have had access. They knew who this third party was, but they also knew the money wasn't there. We also know that you can't sign a contract the 1st of August and sell tickets on September 2nd and expect for the event to be. And both schools knew that too. So there was some decision that could have been made earlier. I think people wanted to make it work, but this is business. Mm-hmm. And our fan base, you know, to be honest, we check the check a lot of times. And so giving us 4 weeks, the plan to go do something is difficult for some of our fan base. And then you add to it, it's an opponent that's not a natural rivalry, that doesn't have much of a fan base. You add to it, you got an 0-4 team and a 1-3 team. As Vaughn indicated, the warning signs was there. And everybody, it's not a case where I think people were trying to be shady. It's pretty much what he said. If you don't have a title sponsor and you don't have a TV media deal, you ain't gonna be successful at a pro stadium. The Detroit Classic happened at Ford Field this year. It did have the support of the Detroit Council, but it had 1,700 people in a pro stadium. You know, they lost out the woozy on that. Same thing with the Circuit City Classic. It had 3,700 people. So here's my point, and I'm gonna be shut up the rest of this segment. Regular classic rivalries like the Florida Classic, the Bayou Classic, the Turkey Day Classic, the State Fair Classic, which are traditional rivals that have a long history, happen every year in neutral sites. They are much different than a neutral site game. You can't just put anybody in a market and draw, number one. In the days of having HBCU neutral site games at pro stadiums are going to be limiting unless we do the contract the way it has to be done, where the schools have some skin in the game. There's no free money, and I said this last night or the other night, there's no free money out there. You can't expect people to give you $500,000 and pay for all these expenses to travel, your band and everything, rent the event. Those events gonna fail every time unless you got big money behind it. You got to have $2 million starting out probably, and then the schools have to sell at least $300,000-$400,000 worth of tickets, and then maybe keep that part if you're gonna do non-traditional rivalry classic games. So that's my little spiel, my opinion on it. Go ahead.
I think you're exactly right, though, Kelvin. Everything you said is just spot on. It's there. The bottom line is there are a lot of factors in putting on that game. There's a lot of money. There are a ton of logistics to pull off an event like that. It's not like a party at a club. It's a whole different monster.
Yeah.
Vaughn, I don't know if you're at liberty to say, given your position at HBCU game day, but as a FAMU fan, when you saw this come down the pike or announced during the summer and you saw the flyer come out, what were your thoughts on?
My thoughts were, I always heard it was $1 million to rent Mercedes-Benz. Who's putting up the $1 million to rent Mercedes-Benz? That was my thought. And even when I saw that, it was just like, who's going to put up $1 million this close to the game. That was my concern. I was hoping it would happen. There were a lot of positives of it happening. We all were. It was trying. It was set, and everything about it said it was a revisit to the Atlanta Football Classic. Everything about it, the game Georgia Football Classic, everything about it said a revisitation of the Atlanta Football Classic. But the difference is the Atlanta Football Classic was FAMU against Southern. You can play that game in Itta Bena and it's going to be packed. I promise you. You can play it in New York City, it's going to be packed. It's going to be, because those are two traveling fan bases. And with Tennessee State, it was close enough to draw fans as well. As I said, 2003 Atlanta Football Classic, 70,000. 2002 and 2004, 67,000. It hit a chord. They hit a chord. But you had two natural rivals with two great bands, the ability, and then there were less classics at the time. So they were they were big fish in a small pond. But now there are so many classics, it's diluted now. And so I think just some of the luster of a new classic, because so many have failed. You know, we did the fifth quarter classic in Mobile some years ago. It wasn't it was a game. It's not a classic. A classic is a packed house, two great rivals, a great game, a great battle of the band, great ancillary events, and too many classics came on with the name classics, but it didn't have all of those elements. And that's what diluted the name classic and the expectation around a classic.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, before we transition to the other big story that hit this evening, Vaughn, I want you to clarify or maybe expound on, and I think I read this out of your article, or maybe this is just floating around the interwebs, regarding the impact of A.D. Suggs' comments at the National Alumni Convention. To my knowledge, once there were rumors that had come out via a Facebook post that this Valley game was going to happen in Atlanta. She had made comments at the National Alumni Convention, which then triggered, as I've heard you state before and write, the article, the first article inquiring and making inquiries to not only Valley, but the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Did that hurt this event from happening in any way? I mean, you know, not to say that she's responsible anyway, but like the early release of talking about it before all the I's have been dotted and the T's crossed, I guess.
Let me make this real clear, Bryan. That gave it its only chance because nothing was said. That her statement gave it its only chance of happening. Because how long are you going to hold the information before you? So people started from that. The ticket sales that were made probably were as a result of that announcement. The ticket sales that you actually got, because there was an alert. You can't wait till the last minute and hold this information in. People got to make travel plans and that. So that statement by Suggs at the time she did it probably gave the game its only chance or its best chance of being successful because there was a longer lead time. The problem is after she said that and after Valley released their statement, it went silent for a while. It went silent. Nothing happened until we started asking questions. Well, wait a minute. We got a game coming in 50 days. When are the tickets going to go on sale? So her statement was the only chance this classic had because it needed to start selling tickets.
Well, let me just add to that. According to the street committee, when she made that statement, it happened to just be being broadcast, right? Streamed. but it was something that was meant to be intimate to get the stakeholders there as we talk about athletics, what was coming. It wasn't meant technically to be released to everybody. And according to the street committee, the contract wasn't signed at that point.
Mm-hmm.
The discussions that happened, there was an agreement in place, but there's a process that happened, and the processes at FAMU, and Vaughn is very aware of this, can be quite lengthy sometimes. So the contract wasn't actually signed. I can't speak for Valley, but the contract wasn't signed till August. So therefore, there was no promotion. It was quiet. There was no tickets, and that should have been red flag number 2 at least. Yeah.
Okay. The other big story that dropped, it's sort of the latest news regarding Joe Bullard's comments. The SWAC released as of 6 o'clock Eastern news report that they are dropping a $10,000 fine on FAMU for the comments. And also there is a 2-game suspension of Joe as the public address announcer, but it's a little vague in my opinion. I'm assuming you're up on this, Vaughn. You've seen this where they make this statement that in addition to the $10,000 fine for inappropriate comments made over the public address system that occurred during the Saturday football game, the public address announcer will be suspended for the next 2 upcoming football games. Have you had a chance to dig into any of that yet? Because we were talking about it at the beginning of the show, and I just did a search through the SWAC. This is unprecedented based on fines that they have fined a public address announcer. The last time a band fined was, according to their site, was 2012. So I don't know. Can you add anything that you've been able to gather over the last couple hours?
No, it's really fresh, and I've read it. But one thing that seems to be a common thread, I looked at it. So I read the article, and then I read a lot of threads that had it reposted on social media. And to be honest, even other SWAC schools are questioning this because it's just of course, we're not condoning the actual words that Joe used, but
right.
The banter of bands. I mean, if you were at that stadium, did you all hear what Alabama State Band was chanting?
Whoop that trick.
No, the FAMU. Did you hear the FAMU? Oh, of course. Of course.
Okay.
Oh, it got ugly. But that's part of good, bad, and different. It's part of that culture of the marching band competition. That's a whole nother stratosphere, the bands from the game.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a part of the game, but they have their own atmosphere, and it's very competitive. And so a lot of people on a lot of responses from other schools, I was not surprised to see them say that this is baloney. I was not shocked to see them say this is baloney. On the commissioner side, you know, you got news coming out of your conference that's going all the way up to the absolute mainstream of mainstream media agencies. Mm-hmm. So you almost have to react to make your conference look legitimate. So it's a catch-22. If you're just sitting there and doing nothing while people and TMZ and Yahoo and BET and everyone is reporting about something that happened at one of your schools that in general terms are unacceptable, and you as a conference don't do anything, you're almost backed into a corner. I didn't expect that, but that's what they came up with.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask this, Vaughn. The SWAC is a NCAA sanctioned Division I conference that deals with athletic sanction sports. The marching band is not any of that. There's no swag in. There's no swag band, and I understand it's a swag event in terms of a game, but this wasn't even had anything to do with the game itself. So where does the jurisdiction come from there to give sanctions? I can understand FAMU making that decision to, and I understand, and the street committee said it was supposed to be one game. That's what the school wanted. But whether it's 1 or 2 games, I get that. But this whole fine, where in the bylaws, how does the conference get to find a school for their marching band announcer?
Well, under the, and I read the article about 3 times because I was looking for that, but it encapsulated it under something called ethics and something of that nature. It used 2 words that I'm sure are probably in the bylaws that it says was violated. I don't have it in front of me right now, but I'm sure that is where anything associated with a game at your school could possibly be, like if something on the scoreboard happens that's inappropriate, or I think it used the word appropriate.
So it's like a Jerry Curl picture with
with a brick cell phone.
I'm just serious. Where do you draw the line?
Right.
Yeah.
I think, well, this case sets a precedent.
Yeah.
Just like FAMU said and other schools said, okay, when we see somebody say that, we're going to report it. You know, when we see somebody do something outside the lines, we're going to report it. So they may just be starting
something that they can't police.
They may have opened Pandora's box because they're going to have to be reviewing all of these instances of things going on and happening that are normal occurrences that we don't think much about.
All right.
Mm-hmm. And that was one of the things we talked about earlier, Vaughn. And like when we first opened this segment, it's like, well, I guess the question I had is, what precedent does this set? Was there precedent before to do this action? And Bryan was looking that up. And what precedent does it set going forward in terms of the band banter back and forth? And what are the lines? I mean, that, the comment itself was kind of like, a shot below the belt. But if that is a typical band culture type of, banter below the belt, then is everybody going to start walking on eggshells? And the other question I have, and we don't know, and maybe the NNN/street committee can answer, was in terms of this being brought up, was this, well, how can I ask this? Was the exposure level of our new president and the reaction to the comment, did it propel this getting to where it was? And I don't know if I'm asking it right.
FAMU's president or Alabama State, because FAMU president
immediately
again it had to say something because Alabama State's president said something. So you had to have some response. You can't just sit there and and not say anything.
Yeah, I didn't see who said something first, so I didn't know if it was like, the newness of our new president to this environment and hearing that and saying, oh, okay, I got to get in front of this, or I got to apologize, or whether something came from Alabama State that said, hey, okay.
President Ross wrote the first letter.
Okay.
Right. and condemned it, and saying that it happened at FAMU. So FAMU's you can't just take that punch. You gotta level out the playing field and at least say, hey, we realized something happened. We apologize to our guest, Alabama State. So that was the gist of her letter. Okay. But she had to write that. You just like the commissioner had to do something.
Yeah, as a response. Yeah, I just
you have to do some kind of response, or it seems like you don't care about it, or you're not concerned about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, Sunday I saw her letter first, so I didn't see his, so I didn't know if she was like, okay, I got to get ahead of this, or I can't believe they just said that, so I got to do something. But if the president of Alabama State says something first, then that makes sense. I didn't know if it was just her being new to the HBCU environment, hearing something like that over the speaker. She was like, oh.
Yeah, Ron Jeff said that president had the letter typed 2 hours after the game. It came out fast after the game. It really did come out fast. So just like you're saying, so president got to say something. You know, there's this big hype. The videos are hitting the social media circuit. Alabama State's president has condemned it. You have to say something. Mm-hmm. And so, and I thought the letter didn't go too far. I thought it was just it was what it needed to be. I thought Joe was big. I like Joe's apology. Mm-hmm. It was short and to the point, and it seemed sincere, and that needed to happen as well. It also proved that he didn't try to hurt those young ladies' feelings. Listen, the band announcers and somebody else said it in the chat. Say, "Oh man, it's gonna be boring." Yeah, because we're used to that banter going right up to that line. We needed to go right up to that line, and I hope it doesn't back out and become vanilla, because that'll be no fun for any of us. It needs to go right back up to that line, and so many times they go right to the line and then back down. That's when it's fun. When they say something interesting. But I'm wondering, I'm sorry, so many comments on there, but somebody said, oh my goodness, they're going to go back to vanilla announcing, and we don't want that. I'm telling you, we don't want that.
Mm-hmm. We'll see, because there'll be a whole slew of rivalry games coming up. Like you got Alabama State and Jackson State in 2 weeks. I don't know when the Magic City Classic's happening. So there's going to be a lot of things even before the Florida Classic to see if folks are getting a little gun shy or if they're still doing what they do.
We've seen a bird being shot at us on the field. We've seen, you know what I'm saying? On an ESPN game.
Yeah.
Bethune formed a bird shooting us a hand with the middle finger up.
Yeah.
And guess what we did? Kept it moving.
Jesus. All right, Vaughn, let people know where they can find you. Obviously, HBCUGameDay.com, but I don't know. We're trying to see if we can go 5 for 5. I don't know if you got a fifth story that can jump in there. Maybe the story that you'll actually, I don't know. There might be a fifth story. You got a fifth story that can jump in?
Man, I don't think we have a fifth. I think
you got one. You just ain't gonna release it right now.
How Dave Chappelle say 5. The fifth.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Fifth.
Yeah, exactly.
Just want to. Before I go, I gotta say this. I stole Bryan from O&G StrikeZone to be our play-by-play in the Rattler Football Network, and it sounds amazing. When you get the station manager send you an email during the game of how great it sounds, that tells you how great a job they're doing. Bryan, you're knocking it out the park, brother. You keep doing that. We're going to be hard as hell to keep on to you. But the professional job you're doing on that broadcast on the Rattler Football Network, and it's probably going to be really, really important for the makeup game in Itabena, because most likely Thanksgiving weekend, TV is full. TV's full. It's not going to be a spot there. So people are probably the only way that they can catch that game will be you and Albert. So I want to commend Bryan on doing an amazing job. Sometime if you're at the game, just put your headset on and listen to 96.1, because Bryan is getting it in.
Appreciate you, man. I appreciate you thinking of me and bringing me into the Rattler Football Network family. I'm honored. I'm humbled. I love working with Albert. Still call him Mr. Chester. And you and Chris does a great job, and so it's fun, man. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, brother.